You're live.
Okay. I'm just checking to see if it's going through. Okay, I'm assuming everyone can see and hear me now. And welcome, guys. Happy Monday. I don't know, some of you, if this is your first Monday returning back in the new year. By the way, apologies if you're hearing background noise. That's the coffee being grinded up by one of my family members because it is Eritrean Christmas. So I'm going to make it very short, but we celebrate the Ethiopian and Eritrean Christmas 2 weeks after the traditional, European Christmas. So if you look it up on Google, you can see the history of it. We were the last to learn about the birth of Jesus. So we celebrate December the 25th and January the 7th. So guys, thank you for joining us, and a lot going on in the market as usual. And it was a nice change to see for the first time this year. Bitcoin had recovered some of the losses, surpassing that psychological key level of $4,000. And there's a few things I'm going to talk about, some developments that's affecting it, and I'll I'll get to it. So some people, there's a lot of speculation going on. Is this, the bottom? It was 3,100 the bottom. Is it 4,000? What is it going to be? And as we keep saying, we can't time tops and bottoms, right? So there is some, consensus at the moment that we're still in a bear market. We're still in this dangerous zone right now where it still hasn't established any signs of reversal or any consolidation or anything. And in terms like the volume's been watched as well. And even though we had the last week or so, seeing some level of interest for some investors to come back into the market and make a move, it's actually still, in my opinion, it's still in a bearish area. Still hasn't convinced us that it's going to, this is a sign of a reversal. I'm not convinced of that narrative yet. Some people are excited. It's good that we're seeing some positive momentum. I think it's a bit of a correction. Some news has filtered in as well, but largest where we are right now, we saw what happened last year is the year of the correction, but I do see that at this point right now, it's trying to find some level of stability, and some level of optimism is coming back to the market, but it's not consistent enough to deem it as a potential reversal yet. So we're seeing the market at the moment mostly in the green, and I think it's added something like 70 Bitcoin has added something like I think it's about 6% or something. I'm not too sure of the exact figure at the moment, but it did. Yeah, I think it was a bit more than 6%. They added. I think last time I checked, the change was about 4% in the last 24 hours, but it did get to I think it was over like it reached something like $4,060 something dollars. So yeah, its highest point in 2 weeks is okay. Still has a long way to go. And it was preceded by $5 billion surge in trading volume, and that took it to over $70 billion in market capitalization. So and that was its highest point since Christmas. So I do see this as some sort of move, some sort of signal, as an opportunity for the bulls to come in and make their move. But again, I'm not convinced this is the bottom, or that there's still not some level of what can I say, that there may still be some shorting opportunities. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see. No one can predict the tops and bottoms, as I said. And yeah, it's a cautious start to the first week of the new year. I mean, we have a long way to go. We've survived 2018, and now with what's on the crypto calendar, a lot of news announcements and developments that are due to come out. I did mention that the Ethereum had a hard fork coming up, 3 in fact, that's helped to be a catalyst to affect Ethereum's price, and also I mentioned something else that was affecting Ethereum as well, about what do you call it? I mentioned it last week as well. That people, not Americans, but in foreign investors can go on the DX exchange and purchase digitalized, tokenized versions of stocks such as Tesla, Apple, and so on. And that would be on the Ethereum blockchain. So that affected that project as well. And obviously it did enough volume to go on to flip and be second place, but that gap between Ripple and Ethereum is actually narrowing. So and Ripple has been holding its position quite well, and it did have some good news come out, and yeah, it's gained, I mean, Bitcoin has gained a significant amount in 2 weeks. That was a good move. I would expect, if there's a test to 5,000, then we may be going in the right direction. But again, it has a long way to go. Of that strong 6,000 psychological level as well, that was holding on something like 3 or 4 times throughout 2018. That definitely needs to be tested as well. So again, where it's at right now, it's still extremely risky to take any large positions. So again, do your due diligence, and if you feel like now is the time to get in and invest, or better yet, if you dollar cost average, because it has taken something like a 80% discount since its peak. So yeah, it's still a good opportunity from what I'm seeing as well when you look at it overall. So if you're investing for the long term, certainly now is a good time to, not financial advice, but now is still a good time to invest in Bitcoin. Now, several things have happened in terms of how investors are seeing this moving forward. I did discuss before on Friday about the halvening coming up in next year, in May 2020, and how that's going to affect the price. But we are seeing that there's a little bit more volume that's come into Bitcoin. That's one of the indicators that we could gauge by, and see if there's real interest back in the market, because whatever happens with Bitcoin will affect the rest of the market as well, and people are eyeing that. It is still treated as a store of value, as an indicator of the health of the industry as well. So yeah, it's what was I going to say? So the fact that it's maintained something like over the past 2 weeks, $4 billion, that is still good. And right now, I think I do see that slowly going up, but it's very, very dangerous to speculate right now how long that could be sustained. But if it is to turn around and reverse, it has to retest those prior levels that I mentioned, 5,000, 6,000, because they're extremely key. It's been previously held as support and resistance, so it's a key areas to watch. So in terms of on the fundamental side, the Financial Stability Board did mention that they don't see Bitcoin as a threat or a major threat to the global economy. And that is that's something which was mentioned before as well. You've had different countries. I'll give you an example. So for example, what was it, India, the Reserve Bank of India, they actually had, they did a U-turn. So they were against the idea of, they just didn't understand, from what I'm seeing, they didn't really understand the potential of what it could be, but they've had a change of heart. So I think some of the views that previous bodies have had, previous groups have had, is starting to change, because they're treating this separately, like they're treating it differently from traditional securities, and the way they're viewing how it's going to impact their economy long term is and seeing that there's been a call to united regulations by the G20 countries as well. So they're taking some cues. They're seeing what other governments are doing, what other institutions are doing, and the economic case being made to these countries, it's becoming stronger over time, and the infrastructure has been growing as well. So it is important that when you have these influential groups stating that it will not pose a threat to the world economy, it won't pose a threat, even though they previously said, okay, that we were concerned about it being a mode of transport for illicit activities, money laundering, financing terrorism, and so on. Actually, in reality, that hasn't been the case. So now they've got their arguments to go against Bitcoin and cryptos is becoming less, and it's less and less. What do you call it? The weight that they used to place on it, with more awareness, with more looking at how it transpires in real life, how it's been applied in real life, and the growing real world use case as well, and how other regulators are looking to tap into the potential of it, trying not to stifle innovation, but still find ways to protect an investor, making sure it's not treated as a criminal tool, is something which they're opening up to. And that I'm glad that they're seeing, again, we've had many people change their mind, calling it a scam in the beginning, and negative sentiment towards it, or even just to manipulate the price and just put some FUD out there, and that's something which they're beginning to see, that actually let's be smart and strategic about this. Let's find ways this could work for us, and minimize it, the threats to its survival. So this doesn't surprise me. I do expect more clarifications, regulatory clarifications to happen from different countries, because right now it's like a patchwork. There's some that are crypto friendly, some jurisdictions that have seen a rise in exchanges, individuals, businesses move into their jurisdiction so they can continue their operations without fear of criminalization, without being arrested, without being prosecuted, or accused of doing anything wrong. So the fact that this is evolving all the time, and some countries that had a particular negative stance, I'm not surprised if they did a U-turn, because we do have so much news and developments that come out, so much more adoption, so much more awareness, even during the bear market. What they're seeing on the ground level is undeniable. So that's something where their strategy is fluid. Their approach to it is like almost like a wait and see approach. So that's why we're going to see it. Certainly expect some groups of people to change their mind. I don't believe that any particular rule or policy is set in stone. Even if China had banned the sale of, to allow ICOs to happen, I still feel if they believe that there's enough regulation in place, they may change their mind and bring that back. And so we've seen South Korea do a U-turn, Japan do a U-turn to some respect, and this is why we just have to have this larger outlook, a longer term outlook at what's happening on the ground, what's happening with the infrastructure, what's happening with the adoption rate. We have to see what's happening there, what's being built, because eventually, when because of the technology adoption life cycle, not everyone's expected to come in at the same time. There's certain things that need to develop and happen before extra investor interest occurs, or more businesses take it up, or governments change certain rules or add certain laws. So even in America, you have different states with opposing ideas of how America should, how it should be handled. Where is our place in this? How can we maximize, take advantage of the benefits and opportunities that this poses? Because one thing they do not want to happen to them is get left behind. So this year in particular is where we're going, in my opinion, see a lot of more decisions being made, and risks being taken, and also there will some individuals will actually make calls and say, hey, this is now the time to build, the time to invest, the time to adopt. This is, we're going to see a lot more consensus developing as we see more infrastructure, more developments, more more patents being filed, more collaborations coming together, and this is something which is not stopping, it's not halting, even despite shutdowns, crackdowns, frauds, security breaches, you name it, hacks. There's still, even with several powerful people saying it's not going to work, or it will crash, or this, you're seeing some of those naysayers and the people with the loudest voices end up either sort of shutting up or changing their mind, because there's it's being built quietly. It may seem like doom and gloom at times, but it's actually, a lot of things are being built silently. A lot of meetings are happening, and ideas and agreements, consensus occurring behind closed doors. And that's where we are not going to get everything come out at once. This is a slow burner. This is something, especially when we're going, like when you look at the history of any industry, of any life cycle, there's usually, like, when it's taken a 70, 80, 90% discount on its price, or almost bankrupt, almost crashes, almost being taken out of the game altogether. This is the time to regroup, to consolidate, to readjust, evaluate, review, whatever you call it. This is the time that they're making decisions and looking long term and looking to see if and when they're going to execute certain strategies. But from what I'm seeing, it's certainly fluid. Governments are still trying to work out how they can place themselves in this, and we're going to get more clarifications this year of how they're looking to do that on a global level. So that's and I know with technology, with the monitoring tools, they have tracking tools, you know, they're using all that they've got to find ways to get ahead of this, and coming to some level of acceptance as well, that there's certain they well, from my understanding, a big Bitcoin cryptos cannot technically be shut down because it is based on the internet, is based on the number of users that give it the network effect, and the infrastructure being built, and there's so many different strong, tightly knit communities in the crypto space. And blockchain itself is never, in my opinion, is not going to go away. It's here to stay. But how these individuals and groups, organizations and governments approach how they get advanced, how they minimize their risk and maximize their profits or advantages in this space, it's a fluid situation. And for example, even as the SEC is trying to decide whether they should approve these Bitcoin ETFs, they're still going ahead with the crackdowns. They're still going ahead with their checks and balances and whatnot. There's, you know, they're testing and setting up unprecedented cases and even losing one of them. So it's still a fluid situation, and that's why it's sort of reflective in the market where we are right now. There has to be more certainty before the market feels like it can return to where it was in terms of all-time high. But the foundation being built right now with what we're seeing worldwide is definitely, and also with the geopolitical factors, with traditional markets as well, that you know, the stock markets are not having a good time either. So again, a lot of things, the government shut down as well, so much at play here that people are, depending who you speak to, there's still opportunities to be had. There's still risks, and there'll always be risks involved. That's what we need. Certain people need to come into the space and need to understand the overall strategy is, if you're a miner, and historically miners tend to look at what may happen in the future, and they tend to weather out these storms. Bitcoin had, you know, apparently died 300 times and more. They've gone through the worst of it. So, and in each time, the price had gone up significantly. So that's something which they take confidence in, but also with, they look at the development being made on the ground, the infrastructure being laid, the number of Bitcoin ATMs rising despite the bear market, the ID verified wallets rising, more awareness, more programs, more initiatives, you know, that's still increasing. That's, you know, partnerships being formed, projects being restarted or reevaluated, getting rid of the rubbish, the scams, and forcing the bad projects to go, or significantly change. You have the SEC and other groups, regulators affecting how ICOs operate, and investors are a lot more cautious than they were in 2017. They're a lot more diligent. They do the, you know, they see this as an opportunity, but they're also aware of the fact that there's still a lot of uncertainty in the market until they get some clarification with regulation, and seeing where institutional investors will be making their move. There's certain people that are dollar cost averaging right now. There's other investors that are finding different ways to cope with the current bear market. But again, it's the long term way in for it's the end game, the long term vision. And if you do believe in the space, regardless of where the price is now, you're going to have optimistic outlook. And I would understand if there was no developments, no, people were cashing out, people were abandoning projects, and governments, were cracking down even harder and shutting everything down, like the Chinese style, hardly anything being done. If anything, that would be driving the movement underground, I would think. But this is something that they can't kill off. It's that they're finding ways and strategies to be able to find, okay, we can't kill it off, but we have to find ways we can control it, influence it, and limit. And there's a lot of misinformation, and a lot of different programs and initiatives being brought out, a lot of sponsorship partnerships to really drive the education forward, and letting people, and it's those ones that really care about the industry, about this technology and where we're going. They're looking to start from the bottom and literally simplify things, and help the community, especially new users, in order to drive adoption, to give them a better idea of what the market is, what the strong projects look like. And that education is really important, and simplifying things, making it available to the everyday person. So we're seeing more and more of this. If people can see how easy it is to transfer cryptos from one wallet to another, they're more likely to adopt it, and really taking uh, that overwhelming feeling of like you feel intimidated by the information or by the technology. It's really getting all of that misinformation out there, to dispel some of that narrative and replace it with common sense, as less jargon as possible, just in everyday language, what it means, how does it work, what it means for me, where do we see this going in the future. This is really what people want to understand. How is this going to be useful for me, for my family, and am I getting ahead of the game? Am I early into this thing? And what should I do? What's the next moves, and so on. So there's a lot more people. It hasn't wavered at all. There's still more people looking for information. That's why the level of awareness has increased even during the bear market. There's still investor interest. There's still governments trying to work out how to move forward, trying to get the best of both worlds. So this is something which we're going to see play out this year. I do see a lot more optimism coming back into the market, and a lot of good developments happening on the ground. So one of the concerns was the Bitcoin's volatility. That's been steady. I would say it's still steady. It hasn't gone to. It was not as crazy as 2017, and for some people, that's actually a good signal. So that the less volatile it is, the more stable it is, the more attractive it will be for investors. And this is something which people will be looking forward to as there's more adoption, there's more use happening on the ground level. There's going to be a lot more people adopt. Um, I'm just being handed coffee because it's Christmas here, Eritrean Christmas. Okay, I literally have my little Eritrean Ethiopian coffee ready there. Okay, so what was I saying? Anyway, so that narrative that cryptos are bad, is used by criminals, this and that, that's actually been that's been challenged, and in reality, that the numbers prove that it's not. In fact, they're more likely to be identified, and you know, the cash is still the king. It's still been largely used to do money laundering and financing terrorism. So that is slow. That narrative is slowly changing. The more people are educated, um, and some of the issues that first and second generation blockchains, the some of the issues that they have in, like scalability, and the level of adoption going on, the is, some people perceive it as it been delayed, or uh, people are scared of by the bear market. But where we are right now is actually a great opportunity. It's a great time, not only to get educated in the space, but to be involved and find creative ways, creative strategies to make the most of this situation, this zone that we're in right now. So, and even Binance, I like the fact that the CEO, I struggle to say his name, Xiangpeng Zhao, he's optimistic, and in terms of where it's going, he definitely believes that this is going in the right direction. And you know, the case that he makes as well, and the expansion that he's doing, is really, and you can see this on the ground. He can see the, you know, there's more and more people signing up for these accounts, more trades being done on that platform. It's been consistent, and they're expanding aggressively and making sure. And that's the whole point, is to try and drive that, to have the place, the foundation set, so more people can come in and use the coins, and be involved in the projects. Or if you're a developer, programmer, engineer, we're seeing a lot of these people coming to the space because of big companies, even private companies, public companies, you know, putting out these hiring these people to explore their version of you know, the policy that they set for blockchain and cryptos. You know, how is this going to make money for our business? How are we going to you know, adjust this to our operation? And how is this going to help our consumers? How is this going to increase our acquisition, and so on? So this is, I definitely see Binance and other exchanges that continue to grow, that continue to invest. I do feel that they still need to work on their security issue. That is the biggest concern with anyone dealing with exchanges, until we get to like some sort of global standard protocol, where perhaps there could be like a global, like a self-regulated insurance, some sort of insurance plan or something, where perhaps these exchanges can deposit a certain amount into that that fund, that insurance pot, and regardless of, you know, what happens, you know, that their investors, their customers, can be certain that they'll be insured regardless of what happens in a case of hacking, you know, of anything, even inside sabotage, or whatever the case may be. So I think it would give the industry a lot more, especially investors, a lot more confidence if there was insurances, not just verbal assurances, but actual legal assurances, and all of it backed by money. At the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? If we can have something like that, that's standardized and globalized, and it you know, you have I wouldn't make it mandatory. I would think, if because it depends from exchange to exchange, business to business, but if that precedents can be set, then it would give a lot more, if it it can increase the trust, if it could be more transparent in this space, I feel that's not only going to serve their customers and increase their profit margins. I think it will be incredible for the rest of the market as well. So I feel like they need to come together to work out how they're going to self-regulate. Otherwise, if the governments, which, you know, some of the things they're proposing on a global scale, if they have it their way, I feel like they're going to end up losing more and more control to them. So unless they get proactive, unless they come up with clever strategies, clever ideas to encourage safety in numbers and assurances, whether it's I don't think it's enough to just invest in top of the state of the art technology and security and whatnot. I think that if there's some insurance, some sort of standardized, globalized insurance that these exchanges can opt in, I think that will actually make people feel a whole lot better. And remember, it's not just one exchange that you might use. You might want to go to another one. You might, you know, have opportunities, you know, the transaction fees might be lower in another exchange. So if you know that you've got your funds in one place and that's insured, and then you go to another one and that's insured, that actually gives you more incentive to trade, to invest, to be able to use the, you know, all the facilities at your disposal. And you know, it just reminds me of the traditional systems of how they have even government policies, like if there's a bank, or if there's a run on the bank, for example, here in the UK, we're insured by up to £75,000, like that your bank account, the money that you have, it will 100% back it and guarantee that it will be, in an event of a bank run or some collapse or something, that they will protect your deposits. So we need that on the crypto side as well, because a lot of the fears and problems that we're facing there, that you know, that fear that exchanges, and it's well founded. We've seen 2018 was a huge year in terms of all these breaches and hacks. CoinRail, was it Bithumb, some other exchanges, and they all have, you know, they've basically realized that it's not worth the cost to be lax on security, to be losing customers. It's like that the ghost of Mount Gox is still haunting the industry. And we do not want new versions. If we're going to increase adoption rate, if we're going to increase trust and transparency, we definitely need to find ways to you know, get 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the hackers, and be really smart about it. So this is why we're seeing, for example, with Bitfinex, it's preparing to upgrade to what they call bare metal servers to enhance security and performance. Anytime, I know people are concerned and worried, anytime a particular exchange goes down temporarily, are they actually going to leave and run off with the money? But they actually need that time they need to go offline to do some maintenance work, to upgrade their systems, to also test and make sure that it's still, you know, because there's always programs being written. Hackers always look to find, exploit vulnerabilities in the system. That's never going to stop. So that is something that they need to always take a proactive approach. So I, for one, when I see exchanges go offline temporarily, I think that's a good sign, and I do feel that's going to impact the price later on, and give more confidence to investors later on. So that is, you know, important, and definitely I do see more exchanges expanding, and I like how Binance is user friendly and finding ways, like it's going into Africa, going different places, and working with local governments if they're crypto friendly. working with those jurisdictions to then formulate future laws, future policies that will, help to bring in even more investment into that country or jurisdiction. So that's really important, and that gives me confidence. That gives me an insight as to how where they see the future, where they see the space going, and being proactive. I think in this industry is still young. Bitcoin just turned 10. It's very important that they still move ahead with their plans, even though there's uncertainty, and that will also it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that actually ends up giving more confidence, knowing that there's projects that know where they're going. They feel very, not only just confident, but they believe in what they're doing, and they're putting the assets behind that. And in this day and age of uncertainty in any market, any industry, investors are looking to that as signs of of a market becoming more mature, more stable. And eventually you're going to have, when the market turns, we're going to have a lot more, when we see the rise happening again, when we see the boom again, it will actually be on a stronger foundation this time, rather than what we saw in 2017. So it will be a lot more, the arguments will be a lot more solid, to make the case for further adoption and so on. The easier we make this for everyone to come into the space, the better it is for everyone. So, and there's so many developments happening on that. And even Wise, I don't know if I ever mentioned this name correctly or not, but Wise or Wise, WEISS, they released Ratings 7 forecast for this year, and they're positive on that, especially with Bitcoin. They still see it as a store of value. They see all of the developments that's been happening around it. And Lightning Network as well, Bitcoin Lightning Network. They're still confident that the technology is still developing, and despite the where we are right now in the price, despite being a bear market in 2018 as well, it is going to be. They do see it as a year of progress last year, but they feel that this year will even be better, and that they do expect these top current cryptocurrencies to have different initiatives, different projects that will, different, what can I say, like a side shoot. The infrastructure around it will still continue to grow, and there'll be even more upgrades and features that will come out of that. This is something that will continue to increase. It will continue to go up over time, that is. So there's, the word to use is optimistic. So still optimistic about companies like Cardano, EOS, Holochain. This is still going to as I keep saying over and over again, despite where we are in the market, institutional investors, retail investors, governments, businesses, projects, they still remain largely optimistic long term, that we're going to get through this bear market, and that there'll be more adoption. And I like the fact that it clears out a lot of the failing projects and the scammy coins as well. So I think this is basically cleanup. This is where we are right now is, exactly where we need to be. And heavyweights coming out and saying that this is definitely a bear market, and it will reverse at some point, and continue to remain optimistic. And institutional investors are getting ready to get into the market. If BACT gets approved, if Nasdaq has plans to get to jump on board as well. So you know, it's looking good for the space right now. So and then on top of that, Colorado, there's been a bipartisan bill that's been introduced to exempt cryptos from some security laws as well. And that's been, again, remember, with Ohio taking a position regarding Bitcoin, with allowing businesses to pay taxes with it. You have, I like the fact that it's bipartisan, that these meetings are happening on the Capitol, but around the country as well, deciding how they're going to interpret when it goes to the courts, how this is going to be seen, because part of that was how they define securities, how they would define these tokens. You know, the differences has to be clearly laid out. And that bipartisan effort coming from on the Senate level from Republicans and Democrats, despite, you know, I like to think that even with the partial shutdown going on with Donald Trump and the Democrats, you know, tearing each other apart, I like the fact that the others are looking for ways to come together and, you know, do this for the betterment of the country. And so with the Colorado Digital Token Act, it does try and give extra freedoms for cryptos, for cryptocurrencies and traders, and to give them more protection. And so, you know, and we will see more crackdowns on any scams or any fraudulent attempts to offer securities, or, you know, any ways they feel that it's going against the law. And, you know, we are going to end up seeing local regulators making policies and rules at the state level, but also look to the federal government to give them some guidance and some, you know, have some standardization, some clarification on that, so they can then see what's best for them and create new laws and bills that helps their particular constituents. So again, that's a start. It's like Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't expect every state to have the same consensus or agreement on. I think they never will. I think there'll always be certain individuals and certain groups of people that will feel like, you know, cryptos still haven't proven themselves. They may adopt the blockchain. They may encourage companies to have their own blockchain projects, or get in partnership with art and make the most of that technology. But they may be against cryptos. They may think it's just speculation, or, you know, it's been the price has been manipulated and there's too many hacks going on and so on. But then they have to see the bigger picture and take, you know, these experiments have already been done elsewhere, and other jurisdictions are showing exactly how it could be successful. So then, you know, they're looking at taking some lessons from that and adopting it and adapting to their own market and seeing where they can gain the most advantage. And so this is why I like what Colorado's doing, Ohio's doing. New York still has some way to go. I feel like they're cracking down too hard, and they're you know, eventually. And I think that's because that is the home of the traditional markets, the stock market, the financial market. So there's still going to be some resistance and pullback, pushback on that. But other states are not waiting for anyone. They're just going ahead, doing their own thing, and within the constraints of the law, and you know, going ahead and you know, helping other businesses cope with this you know, new world that we're in. And they have to adapt. They have to adapt or die. So so having these proposals put in place, the bill, given more businesses, more individuals clarity as to how to treat these assets, is so important, because we do not want to hear have cases, because we are seeing crackdowns happening where innocent people get caught up in that, and because there's no current laws to define, to have clear definitions of what cryptos are and what is seen as, how it's treated in the eyes of the law, that clarity has to come through at some stage. There's no way we can avoid it. That is going to get on the bill, on the books. That is what I'm seeing and hearing. But again, I think it's going to be a mishmash. I don't know how to say that word. Of It's like a patchwork quilt. You'll have different variations of shades and colors. Certain people are certain groups, certain what do you call it? Certain boroughs and districts, counties. Some of them will have conflicting ideas than the other one, and trying to find ways that they can work together. It's really going to push people to have strong debates about this, and help them figure out what they're going to do long term, and how the majority of them do not want to be left behind, but they do want investor protection there. They do not want to be scammed or be channels or vessels or hubs for illegal things to happen. So that's really what they're trying to give more confidence and clarification. And this bill is a start of things to come. From what I'm seeing, for this year, it will be the year of regulatory clarification as well as progress. And the space doesn't stop. It will still continue to grow, still continue to adapt. It's waiting for nothing and no one, and it's like one giant living, breathing thing, and it relies on multitudes of communities in the blockchain space, in the crypto space, to really get the word out, to really get the adoption up, and get people to understand the massive potentials in this, and how it can dramatically shift our way of thinking and living, and how we can approach our global challenges in the smartest ways possible. So this is really getting the word out, educating people, and getting them to understand it's more than just making money. It's more than scams. It's more than all whatever stereotypes that people, whatever negative sentiments, or whatever they think or feel, or what they've heard in the news, in the mainstream media about this. It's really to get people to take initiative and say, this is your life, this is your journey. You go in and find what works for you, what will help you get more independence, more control over your life, and especially financially. So that is something that discussion, that narrative will continue to drive the agenda forward. And I certainly think that there's going to be more adoption on the way, more education on the way, more filings on the way, more clarifications from regulators on the way. Because this gray area is unsustainable. I do feel like they're already starting to make moves now, and they're gonna either you're gonna have like either governments or jurisdictions that crack down hard, or you've got some that will be I support it, but I'm going to take it step by step and see where it goes. And that is something which is liquid, and it's in constant flux. And you also do have some that change their mind as well. Actually, you do have governments and individuals that called the space a scam, change their mind and come into the space themselves and do well out of it. So again, don't listen to what they say. Look at what they do, and take make your decisions from there, what works for you, and look at the space as a whole. Look at what's going on the ground, rather than just one individual events or news or developments. Not one company, not one project, not one individual has any monopoly on the system, on the ideas, on the future. This is literally being ran and being pushed by millions and millions and millions of individuals and organizations and groups. It's all messy, but it's all going in the right direction, because if you look at the numbers, infrastructure wise, if you look at the number of people being more and more aware of the space, if you look at the number of wallets, number of involvement, number of exchanges, number of you name it, anything, look at the different look at the different ecosystems, and it just is going up. Like, by all metrics, it's actually on the rise despite the bear market. So the numbers on that doesn't lie, because if you just go to any country that has been dealing with cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and you look at the numbers since 2008, it's just going up. It's literally just on its way. So again, overall, the space is growing despite what the price shows at the moment. So that's why I'm confident about the market, and that's why people are looking for ways to make this space make sense for them and make sure it works for them. And that's the key thing, that they have to find ways that will be able to give them confidence and trust, because it's so subjective. The way people have different motives and intentions, so the way that one person looking at one project may and another person may be looking at it completely different because of what they're seeking to derive out of it, and their understanding will be two different things. Even if the facts are in black and white, some people, the decisions that they make, what motivates them to do certain things is completely different. So that's why it's super subjective, and there's no telling what's going to happen in the long run with individuals or companies and businesses. But what we do know, based on the numbers, overall there is an increase, and there's an incline, and that the space is continuing to grow. Awareness is continuing to grow. So by that, with those metrics, this is not going to go away. This is something, I compare it to the age of the internet. And what blockchain technology is looking to do is create new forms of decentralized Web 3.0 platforms and applications that does continue to increase the advantages over the current centralized internet platforms and applications that we see. It's literally building on the progress that's been made over the last 20 years. So that's not going to go away at all. This is a shift that's going on, and we're in this this space where we're still trying to work out, there's still uncertainty about the market. If you're an investor wanting to know when is it a safe time to go into the market, and really there's no right time. If you wait for a confirmation of a bull run, fine, that's up to you. If you look at it historically, though, if you look at any other technology that has gone through its ups and downs, those bear markets tend to give a lot of opportunities for investors, and also it's an area of consolidation. It's a time for you to reevaluate where you are in your portfolio and what your strategy will be long term, and really sober up and think of all the opportunities out there, rather than being scared off and being shaken out by stronger hands. It's really the time. There's no right time. The time is always now. So to have strategies in place and prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and educate yourself, that's always the right time to learn every single day about the space and the technology, and it's always evolving. So this is why instead of being scared by all the news and uncertainty out there, this is the time really to regroup, reassess, review, relearn, pick up new ideas on, look into new projects, and look at where we're going, individually and collectively as well. So, and what's been built, what people are doing in the space, what they're creating in the space, and whether it has real world use case. So, that's why I'm not too fussed or too worried about any negative sentiments or news, because that's exactly what had happened in previous life cycles of different areas of technology. That's part of the journey, part of the process. So I've accepted that already, that there are going to be a lot of mistakes that's going to happen, a lot of disasters or crashes or breaches that's going to happen. It's a young industry, it's young technology, that it's failing forward in some respect. Overall, this is growing. So that, for me, I derive confidence from that. And as long as the space, the industry, and there's community still driving this forward and still building, and people still being hired to do this work, people still developing different ideas and concepts, and constantly testing their prototypes, constantly testing their ideas, and constantly getting the word out and educating the space, then yeah, this is I definitely think it's going to continue to grow and evolve. So I think I went a bit over the time, but anyway, Japan, what did they do? They're also looking to potentially launch their own Bitcoin ETF as well. Again, they're taking notes from what's happening in the States, and potentially giving it the green light to trade in the domestic markets. And Japan is one of those countries that have adopted Bitcoin. They did make it legal tender. They do have a good ecosystem there. And Japan is amazing because it is considered the home of technology. All of these brands, all of these projects that have come and revolutionized the not only the industries, but the society, the culture that they have. They still, they're very forward thinking, futuristics. They're never afraid to try different things. So for me, I definitely see Japan and South Korea looking to take a lead in this as well, and creating different opportunities in the space. And yeah, they're all working together. They're still they still have a level of caution in the market, but they're still finding different ways to regulate, looking to crack down on money laundering and illegal financial there is this, I forgot the name of it, but Japan has this famous I forgot their name, but they are the mafia. Japan has a well-known, like the was it several hundreds of years old, well-known mafia, and they sort of tolerate them. They didn't look to get rid of them or anything, and they have been involved, using cryptos to launder money, but they're being slowly cracking down on them, but they still leave them, they keep their distance from them. But again, it's looking for ways to uh, get ahead of the space, get ahead of the moves being made, and they're very proactive. And yeah, I like what Japan's doing, what South Korea is doing, and that I don't expect with other countries that have put what do you call it, rules in place, and what do you call it, I was going to say something about it's escaped my mind now. But yeah, I do feel that self-regulation is going to be something to watch. I do feel that the industry is going to make the case to have creative ways that they can implement investor protection, and I do think that's the way. Otherwise, it's just, the more regulation we have in the space, I do think that they do have ulterior motives in the long term to try and manipulate the space and control as much of it as possible. So I think there's going to be a delicate balance, and yeah, I definitely see Japan continuing to lead the way for blockchain and cryptos, and find rules and regulations that are sensible and work for their markets. And also, I know Hong Kong, there's a Hong Kong-based crypto exchange as well, looking to offer Bitcoin futures as well with 20 times the leverage, 20 times leverage, and that's important. We've seen what happened with the future contracts when the CME and CBOE had come out with it. But yeah, we're seeing more of these markets looking to create their own and have that listed and take advantage. And the ones that people are really interested are the physically settled ones, where Bitcoin or Ethereum would be used to settle it instead of cash. So that I definitely see on the rise. And there was something else as well I wanted to mention. Something else as well before I go. Yeah, Ledger has unveiled a Bluetooth enabled hardware wallet as well, which is good. I do see others getting on board with that, and they have upgraded the security on that. And think with Ledger, you can have up to 100 cryptos at any one time. That's the one thing I wanted to see in more of these, and I do expect that to continue on these hardware wallets, more support being offered for different projects, for different cryptocurrencies, and the security to be increased, and different features that will make it convenient and easy to use being added as well. More iOS or Android support as well, to be paired and used on the devices. So this is a good development with that as well. The more secure it is, the better. But I would never leave a lot of my crypto funds on what do you call it, on mobile phones or apps. Even on these hardware wallets, I would have several and spread that all over, and not have all my funds in one wallet. I still, even if it's you have extra security and other features added to it, again, use common sense and have all your assets diversified and kept in different places. And for me, I prefer to have all my tokens, my coins on hardware wallets. Um, and hard drive, if it's a hard drive I'd be using, it have to be cold storage, it has to be air gapped, so it's not connected to the internet. And I do see that there's going to be more and more of these new hardware wallets come out with more protection in them. That is great. And yeah, I definitely like Ledger's update and improvement. And also I wanted to mention that there was something else I wanted to mention. I don't think I said that before, but Binance Launchpad, they're looking to offer. It's basically going to be a new platform that it helps blockchain projects raise funds, and it's going to help raise what do you call it? It's going to help in the long term drive adoption as well. And so the fact that it's got that leverage, it has something like 10 million Binance, up to 10 million Binance 10 million Binance users, offering them the special opportunity to get these project tokens. That is definitely going to, I see this being a standard with other exchanges as well. And yeah, certainly anything that helps to increase adoption and help those particular projects develop their product into having real world use case, that's a great idea. And I like the fact that they're always constantly innovating and creating new opportunities for themselves, despite the bear market, and growing their share market, their share of their of the market as well. So this is why Coinbase is scrambling to make sure that they can at least keep up with Binance and other exchanges that innovate. So yeah. And then finally, I wanted to mention, this is a bit funny to me. So I wanted to let you know that Nevada, Nevada always does the craziest things, but Nevada decided to issue almost 1,000 marriage certificates on Ethereum. But the government acceptance does vary from place to place. So they use smart contracts to do these digital marriage certificates. And can you imagine if that's great, by the way, it's secure, it cannot be forged and whatnot. But if, some jurisdictions may not accept it, or may, have rules to say you got to have the paper as well as the digital, or whatever the case may be. But I think that's a good start. Marriage certificates on the blockchain. I do think even with university certificates, college certificates, or any type of valuable paperwork, anything that shows your records, I feel like 100% at some point it will all be digitized, and have that securely stored. And as we know with the blockchain, it is immutable. Once you put the record there, it cannot be tampered or changed. And that's something which I feel definitely is going to help with secure. I think I discussed this before, but forgery and counterfeit, that industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And so if it helps with verification, and give more transparency, and it's digitized, so it saves money on space, storage space, saves money on actually the paper, the trees that are being cut down and whatnot, and also ownership of assets, and having title deeds and whatnot all digitized and put in the blockchain. You can also be quick perhaps to sell it as well. That will reduce the completion time too. So that's something, again, I see a lot of benefits with this, and we're seeing a trend where everything is being digitized, and slowly going towards this route where everything will be that the records will be placed and kept in secure areas, or find ways to be able to have the best of both worlds. So have that transparency, but also have that top-notch security. So again, this is a good, like, again, I feel like I'm a broken record all the time. Like, these projects, these developments, anything that shows any change of culture or change of use, change of awareness, if we see more and more people hearing about this use or that use, or this law, this partnership has come into, the more we see of that, the more there will be, the more trust there'll be, the more confidence there'll be, the more it gets normalized. So this is, to me, it definitely gives me confidence with the space, where we're going overall, where we're heading, and overall, despite the bear market, we are exactly where we need to be, and we're heading forwards, onwards and upwards. And that is reflecting on what's happening in the ground, with the finding ways to encourage adoption in businesses, adoption by businesses, individuals, groups, organizations, you name it. Everyone, one way or another, will have direct or indirect links and ties to the space, and opportunities will continue to flourish. And it really is about what you envision and your mindset, and knowing that where we are right now and where we're going to end up going is it's just your decision. It just depends on what you believe to be right for you, and where you think this will be we will go. And so if you're part of the group of people that do feel, even with the evidence around you, you feel that there's still possible, like, even think of the worst case scenario. Here's the thing though, once you stretch an elastic band, it never goes back to the same shape it used to be. So if you've seen or heard something, you can't unsee or unhear something that you've already experienced or you've encountered and you're aware of. And if you know something works, something has been tested and it works, and actually it's more efficient, it makes me more money, it has some sort of advantage, you can't unsee and unhear that. And so that is something which we're going to be having to make those decisions and say to ourselves, logically, does this make sense? Emotionally, when we act out of emotion, that tends to cloud our judgment. So again, just look at what's happening on the ground, look at all these developments and stories coming out that show evidence that there's something that's working in this space, something that's better than what's currently out there. This is a new alternative. This is how it works. This is the advantages and disadvantages. And it's not perfect, but it's still evolving, still changing. Are you going to be a part of that journey? Are you going to be part of the, group of people that make the decision now to say, I'm investing in this, or I'm learning about this, or I'm doing this? Or if if you're backing out, that's cool as well. But really, it's about what's happening on the ground. If you're seeing the evidence stack up showing how this would work and that would work and so on, and there's still groups of people looking to solve these major problems that me and you individually cannot do, but as a group, and with all the talents, abilities, awareness, knowledge, wisdom that others have, especially in the tech industry, all these people with incredible skill sets that are literally laying the groundwork for these systems and networks to become the invisible skeleton, the invisible, the structure that you have in a home, in a building, laying the concrete, laying the foundation, laying the concrete pieces, this putting in the steel, putting in all the different parts that is not going to be seen, but it will be felt. It will be holding up the entire ecosystem. Those are the little things, like, how ants or honeybees, they're looking to build as a team. They build all these structures slowly. Like, eventually you see this this thing that they've created, and it's real, it's happened. And if you're still seeing that level of work being put in the industry, you're still seeing businesses come and work out what they're going to do with their their version of blockchain, or like they're working with partners, working with individuals, hiring more people, whatever it may be, whatever their strategy is, whatever their policy is, is there more and more people finding ways to interpret the environment and figuring out ways that they can adapt and make it work for them? If you're seeing more and more of that, then take that as a cue, take that as a clue, that the work is still being done regardless of where we are, the price that we see. So that is something that I'm seeing personally. I'm still seeing the overwhelming work that's still being put in, still being built. get rid of, I like the fact that it's getting rid of the weaker projects, the scams, and clearing out the weaker hands. It's almost like a survival of the fittest. It's like almost like natural selection. But these cycles, boom, bust, boom, it's normal as an investor. This is something that we expect. But again, this, I keep saying this again and again, this gives me confidence because of what I'm seeing on the ground. The more I discover that there's this group of people working on climate change, this group of people working on poverty, this group of people working on this, and that number is constantly growing. The number of partnerships growing, the number of initiatives growing, then, you know, as long as I'm seeing that, that gives me confidence. Because if even while we're eating or sleeping or doing something else, you best believe that there's a group of people or individuals making moves to take advantage, create opportunities for themselves and others, and taking advantage of the time right now. They're not waiting for anyone or anything to happen. They're making moves. They're the ones that are deciding I'm not going to fall for the narrative that I'm going to sit here acting helpless and not do a thing. You have to decide what you're going to do. You have to decide how you're going to play it to make it work for you. And you have to be the one to have that mental to tell yourself and to feel in yourself, like if this is the decision you made, you have to then find ways to cope with that and bring out the best of you through that. And really, it's all a mental thing, to me at the end of the day. What we're seeing with the markets, what we're seeing being played out on the ground, as long as I'm seeing something, even one person, one project, one anything, it still is, as long as there's still not just believers but achievers in the market, I'm still there rocking. I'm still involved. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. Because overall, if I can see the community, not everyone has completely left the industry, you know, as long as I'm seeing miners, traders, investors, builders, programmers, coders, whoever it is, if I'm still seeing a community there, if I'm still seeing the work continuing and progressing, then that to me is enough for me. That is more than enough evidence for me to believe that there's still, this may take some time. We can't time tops and bottom, but in that respect, I'm logical, I'm rational, and it helps to form part of my decision making. But ultimately, I have to be the one that says, you know, this is, you know, as an investor coming into this space, these are the risks that I'm aware of. This is what I have to brace my mindset for. And this could be, you know, long term, short term. It could take a few months before we see a reversal. It could take a few years before we see a reversal, but I'm braced for that. Here's my strategy. I'm ready for this and that scenario. And that I've made my peace. And then really, it's to do with, once you've made that decision, sticking to your guns and going through it. And you can still adjust and adapt as and when you need to, but really it's making that decision and having that discipline to say, hey, I'm not going to be unnerved or scared, or you know, these individuals, these groups, these powerful people trying to influence me emotionally is something I tend to push back on. So if you're going to make a very important decision for yourself, you do what you have to do. But for me, I will try my very best and not to have emotions at the center of it. I tell myself this all the time. If I'm going to make a decision, base it on all the evidence around me, and you know, what are the cost, the cost benefit, and do the cost benefit analysis and work out what I'm trying to get out of this, work out what we're trying to get out of this. And for me, I'm 100% in this space long term, regardless of where the price goes, where we end up, because it's, to me, it's undeniable, indisputable that we're seeing in all the continents of the world, we're seeing all types of people learn about it for the first time, people that are already inside the industry doing whatever moves they want. They're still there. Some of them have disappeared. That's cool. That's normal. That's part of the process. As an investor, you just got to deal with where you are right now, where you want to be, and stick to your strategy, and deal with your deal with your interests, and having that mental fortitude to go through all the ups and downs, because the way the markets are set up, it is like a game. So but yeah, so you have the decisions that you make as a trader and an investor. That is one thing, but then you also have to look at what's happening on the ground, what's happening to other industries, other areas, other sectors, and figure out, okay, is this going to end up changing how business is done, how we see things, how we interact with each other, how we define value. If I'm seeing that the business community is working on this, and some level of adoption happening, if I'm seeing retail investors getting involved, if I'm seeing educators getting involved, if I'm seeing, organizers and all types of stakeholders getting involved and interpreting the space and the projects, and seeing whether this is valuable, this is, something I can do right now or perhaps later. As long as I'm seeing real world use case, as long as I'm seeing passionate people working to create new solutions for age old problems, that to me is more, to me, that's enough for me to believe that, this space will continue to evolve, and that there will be more and more value being created, and therefore there'll be more and more opportunities created too. So I feel like I'm right on time. I'm absolutely fine where I am. And overall, I see this for everyone as well, that we are where we are right now in the market, in the time, 10 years in since Bitcoin's inception. Absolutely blessed, a huge opportunity to right now, in the here and now, where we are in the technology lifestyle, adoption life cycle, where we are in terms of all the problems, and all the uh, challenges that we're facing individually, collectively, in our communities, in country to country, worldwide. Everything is affecting everyone, and no one is immune to anything. We're all connected in some way, shape, or form, and the decisions made by other people, powerful people, does affect the rest of the world. And really, it's to do, again, it goes back to your mindset, as all of this uncertainty and chaos and craziness is happening around me, but what am I going to do? Am I going to let them rob me of my peace, or am I going to empower myself and decide, okay, I will focus on the things that I can control, the things that I can make decisions on, and I'm going to be creating visions or ideas or ways to be able to create value for myself and other people. Whatever you have in your mind, whatever you feel or think, or whatever you've experienced, there's still value from sharing that knowledge or wisdom, and learning from each other, and learning just for the sake of learning, or learning to profit, or do whatever you may. But you deriving that value, deriving the understanding from the space, from the community, and having all these, you're seeing all these ecosystems being built, and some of them surviving, some of them not. But there's this, we're in this constant state of flux, and constant state of change. And it's almost like you're in, I'm trying to think of something, it's fully liquid, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not one day where you have full good news or full bad news, or full like, you don't have any absolutes. There's always things going on, and there's always, sometimes it seems contradictory, sometimes it seems crazy or incomprehensible. But that's part of the, that's part of the industry, of part of being in something that's not only it's disruptive, not only it's revolutionary, not only it's transformational, but it really gets us to think and redefine what value means, and redefine what control means, redefine what we want out of our lives. And and the idea of financial sovereignty is something that definitely would affect people's way of thinking. If you can get people to think that there's more opportunities for them to make to increase their level of financial power and financial independence, that is definitely going to help them in other areas of their how they have that mindset in other areas of their lives too, trying to determine for themselves what what they want out of their life, rather than being dictated to, rather than being told what to do, what to accept. We can all now decide what what we want out of the life, what we want out what kind of returns we want from this space, what kind of education we want, what level of what do we aspire to do and achieve. So it really does open the doors, it opens our mindset. And I I absolutely love the journey. Yeah, there's some crazy wacky messy times too, but that's part of the journey, and it wouldn't be a story, it wouldn't be as interesting without all of the struggles and failures and tests and things. That's why, if you look at Oscar season is going to come up soon. I think global Golden Globes has started already, but Oscar season's on the way. And a lot of these stories, a lot of these movies that have all these plot lines and intricate subplots and whatnot, and a lot of them are super interesting because of the struggles and the twists and the craziness that happens in them. No one wants a boring story, right? So again, take heart from this, where we are, brand new year, brand new opportunity, brand new everything. And only 7 days in, Bitcoin over $4,000. And if it can hold that and continue to build on that level, I am optimistic on that front. But again, if it rejects on the 5,000 or 6,000, and we have another period of that long like that sideways movement that we saw for quite some time last year, the several months where it didn't want to break the 6,000 level. If we see something like that it's stuck in a particular range, then this is something which where we are overall is what do you call it, where we are overall is part of the process of having to deal with the new technology that has died over 300 times, haircut of 70, 80, 90%, and still survive. In fact, to thrive, to continue to, not only did the price go up, but you saw the awareness go up, you saw the infrastructure go up, you saw level of all metrics go up. So this is why I'm not convinced that it's going to die. I'm not convinced that it's not going to turn around. I'm not convinced by all these scare stories that, even if they're true, I feel like where we are, by all metrics, we're heading upwards, and that cannot be denied. If I'm seeing more and more adoption in different ways, different forms, different manifestations happening, that's a clue to me that the probabilities of this space continuing to add value and do well over the long term is far higher than the scenario where we see literally billions or trillions of dollars worth of investments in the space just go to zero. I mean, what do you do with the Bitcoin ATMs? What do you do with any other physical infrastructure, the networks created or whatever? What do you do with all of these things that have already been created and people are still using it? That's why I'm saying that the amount of resources that has already been invested, big names, small individuals, from high to low, everyone at every stage has dedicated some level of time, if not time, money, or if not money and time, some resources, some other resources, or all three, to be able to help to build this market, build this industry to where it is now. So based on that, I do stay optimistic and remain optimistic for the rest of its life cycle. I'll continue to have an approach where I prepare for the worst, diversify my assets, and make sure I do my due diligence on everything, and take even position sizing as well, and really have this long-term view, and making sure that I have a holistic approach to everything, and not make irrational decisions not based on logic and evidence and so on. So I've definitely been speaking quite some time now, but yeah, just wanted to add that. It makes we all know that this is pretty much common sense. This is something that when you're coming into the space as an investor, you already know that this is there's risks involved, and that you've already done the calculation and assessment on this to know, okay, this is what it will take for me to leave, or what this is what I'm going to do, this is how it's going to work for me, and constantly review and adjust that, and continue to have any sort of value continue to grow. So even if it's if the the value of your portfolio may be down right now, the amount of things that you've learned in the space has gone up. The value of your knowledge and wisdom in the space has gone up. And that there is priceless. So nothing, not even the stock markets or whales or any, even governments, no one can take that equity right up here between your ears. No one can take that away from you. So as you continue to learn and grow, and you build knowledge and acquire other things, then you'd be able to find ways to seek opportunities, perhaps monetize that knowledge and wisdom you have, and find ways to make this space pay for you financially, even emotionally, spiritually, mentally, in all different ways, because it does give you confidence. If you do well here, you will do well other places as well, with that mindset, when you apply, when you adopt that sort of thinking to other areas of your life, where you've that everything has risks attached to it. There's no such thing as guarantees in life, even if there's promises and insurance in place to take care of anything that you've lost, or God forbid, a fire or whatever breaks out. There's life is crazy, and there's always things that are unforeseen, and things that we can never prepare for, that may affect us. So during all this time of uncertainty and chaos, be the one that you be your foundation, be your stability, be the one that you can be your sense of calm, or be your I don't know how to word it, but be the thing that allows you to almost like, if you imagine like a protective shield all around you, be that center. So that's what I was trying to say, like in the eye of it. So while there's craziness going around you, it's like a storm. Be the eye, be the center of the storm, be the eye, where it's completely peace, calm, nothing, everything crazy around you, but you're the eye, you're the center, you're the peace, where peace resides. So with that being said, thank you very much for joining me, and as ever, I'll see you soon. I think on Wednesday we've got a crypto interview, and yeah, I'll see you Wednesday. I'll see you London. Let me see, London. I think that would be 2 p.m. Central. 3 p.m. Eastern, I think. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 8 p.m. London time. So that being said, guys, peace out. Thank you for joining me. And enjoy your week. Thank you.